We're back. Like I said, I got starting to work on my city people like I promised. Tommy Smith, he is the District 1 for City Council. He was appointed to this position because his predecessor left for some reason or other. I guess we're going to have to ask about that. And I do believe he will be the first new candidate as far as someone who is running for an election coming up in the city elections this year in 2021. District 1 is downtown South Knoxville, so there's some interesting stuff at play there for sure. We'll talk about some of that as well as some of the other topics we like to talk about all the time. I'll see if I can talk him into legal weed and going metro, among other things. So that's what we're doing. It's the 15th of February, 2021. We are almost in agreement. Almostagreement@gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Check us out, like us, friend us, do all that kind of jazz, and help us get the word out and become a better, bigger show for more and more people. All right, Tommy Smith, everybody. Like I said, District 1. I want to start with something specifically just because I know this is a normal thing. You were appointed because your predecessor left.
Yes.
What's the story on the departure?
Stephanie Welch became deputy director, one of the deputy directors for Mayor Kincannon. So when Mayor Kincannon was elected, she wanted somebody to lead her economic development initiatives, and Stephanie was selected for that job. And so she had 2 years left on her term, and a lot of good folks came forward, put their name in the hat, and I was the chosen one for the remainder of her term.
Gotcha. So on that appointment process, how does that work in a city council seat? Like I know I had the county public defender, Eric Lutton, who was appointed to that office.
Oh,
but
yeah.
that came from the state. How does an appointment process go for a city council person?
So for the city, the other city council members vote.
Okay.
So at that time, there would have been 8 council members, and so whoever gets the most votes from those council members is appointed.
And so the application process, it's an open application. Anybody who wants to fill the void.
That's right. The only requirement, I think, was that you had to live in the first district for at least a year, or maybe even just there now. So I think there were 7 folks who put their name in the hat,
right.
And submitted your resume and some references, and also there was a big long night of each person got to answer a bunch of questions and speak on why they think they should be in the seat for that moment, and I was the one they appointed.
Gotcha. Because again, I you mentioned that you have heard a little bit of us. As much of this show is about process and procedure as it is about the people doing it, and what the specific events or circumstances or whatever is happening. So I like to. I know that wasn't in my civics class.
Mine either. I learned along with everybody else, I think.
Yeah, because I've been digging hard, just try to, what, again, the premise for me is like I'm just a dude that lives in the county, does business in the city, has my business in the city, and trying to figure out, like, one of the big things for me is, like, when I have an issue as a resident, like, what's the procedure? Who do I go to? And so whether it's a larger policy issue, like, I know Massey's pushing through a kind of a surveillance bill, changing the way that law enforcement's are allowed to use drones and stuff like that. It's like one of those.
Really?
Who do I go to talk about this to express said issues? Now that one's pretty easily specific because Massey's the one introducing it, but it kind of started with I misinterpreted one of the commission agenda items because I thought that the sheriff's office was buying a drone, and so it's like, do I have any so if I take it back into the concept, it's if the sheriff's office is buying a drone, who do I talk to about complaining about that and thinking that's a bad idea?
Yeah.
Is it a commission issue? Is it a state level issue? Is it go directly to Spangler because he is an elected official? That kind of mess. And so that's one of the things I like to try to figure out on certain stuff.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. This morning I got a call from somebody in my district who said she got a bill from the IRS to pay back taxes, and could I help with that? And I thought, I'd have to start from scratch with you, but I'll go along for as much as I can. I wasn't able to help her, but to your point, uh, yeah, these
Right.
things are complicated.
Yeah, it's one of those, like the general answer I get because I'm a county resident is talk to your commissioner, and I think Larson J put it best is we're switchboard operators is really what we are. We may have
That's
better
good.
access to an individual who can actually help you, and if we can put you together and get you help, that's really a good way to do it, and that's not a bad deal. But again, just trying to figure out some of the more structural
Yeah.
issues and how things work, because again, one of the things for me. And I've thrown out the metro idea a bunch to a bunch of different commissioners and now city council people.
Yeah.
And it's not as my premise on it is not that I think we should or shouldn't. I think we will eventually. And I think
Is that a prediction? Is that a firm prediction?
it's a firm prediction. I mean, again,
All right.
going off of
February 15th, 2021.
Well-
Seth Barber called the shot.
well, you could go back to April of 20, I think, is
Okay.
when I first threw my prediction out there. But
All right.
But the idea being, it's like, because I had Amelia Parker on earlier today. I was talking to her about the same kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so trying to understand how the relationship of the city and county governing bodies just work as they are is one of the things I'm trying to figure out, because my metro premise could be completely off base because it could make sense the way we have it separated. I don't know that. And that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Because like it first really kicked off for me when I had Grant Rosenberg and Courtney Durrett, when they were running, I was talking to them about
All
it.
right.
And both of them, they're almost their entire district for the commission, for the county, almost
Yeah.
that entire thing is in the city limits. So it's like, what does a county commissioner do when their entire district is in the city?
Yeah.
And I still don't know the answer to that. That's part of my issue.
I'm sure Courtney could narrow in on it.
Right, because a lot of the different, because again, a lot of the core stuff that you guys do, both in city and county, it's a lot of land use stuff, and I get that. And so again, I guess that's a good start for it. It's like, what do you see as as a council person that is a difference in that? And I think your district, it's District 1 for the county as well, more or less for most of your district.
District 9.
Is it 9? Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
But so
It's
yeah,
okay.
as far as the job goes, what do you see as the differences between you and District 9 in function?
Well, I guess outside of the city limits, County Commissioner Carson Daly would be, the one who helps tackle those zoning issues and transportation. You mentioned land use earlier or zoning. That is a large part of city council's legislative role. If you look at any agenda for any council meeting, most of the items on the agenda are land use. So that is rezonings, it's park acquisition, or easements, it is land use classifications, variances to build a small business on a lot of land that was something else before, or people built things on property that wasn't theirs over time. So what happens now that they're trying to sell it? These land use issues are really complex, and it's just you're a process person, so I can appreciate that and nerd out for a bit with you. But it kind of starts from sector plans. So Knox County Planning, Knox County Planning looks at these huge sectors of the city and says, what do we collectively think this corridor should be like?
Right.
Should it be retail on the bottom? Should it be full open land? Do we want agriculture? And so from there, they build these, multi-year plans down to a one-year plan. And so that's kind of the aggregate, the macro level view of what happens in a given area, or what should happen, or what we've agreed upon should happen.
Right.
And so from there comes these, one-off rezoning issues that have to operate within those. Well, you can rezone a property from one zone to another, but what's next to it and what's next to that? And so those land use things we do city and county joint planning on these sector plans. So that's one area where we definitely work hand in glove through planning,
right,
to think about that.
Because that's one of the things that I had Larson in here, and he was talking about like the strategic vision, the long-term kind of conversation. And my first thought immediately on that is okay, your commission gets together and does yours, but how do you guys rectify with the city on long-term planning things? Do we, because although city is a nonpartisan race, everybody's pretty clear on who's more or less which party divide. The general rule, as I understand it, is the city tends to be much more Democrat, the county tends to be much more Republican, and it pans out in elections that way fairly repetitively, as I understand it. And so we take these two separate governing bodies who are ideologically separate in their party affiliations, and we have to get them together to work on these longer term visions. And how that works, because again, my understanding of it, why the Smokies left in the first place, was because the city and county couldn't agree, not because it was a flat no, we're not going to build you a stadium. It's we can't figure out as a city and county how to get the plan in place, and so whoever the previous owner of the Smokies was like, well, you guys can't get your stuff together. I'm going to go over here.
Yeah, and Sevier County came ready to rock, I think, at the time. So. There are other times where, there's different things where we overlap, different things where we rely on one another. For example, as you probably know, the county is responsible for the county school for all of the schools. And so that used to be city schools that were separate. We both rely on jointly the chamber to do business recruitment and workforce development and training. We have different police and sheriff departments, but we share Knox planning, as I mentioned earlier. 911 resources are shared sometimes in a crisis. So, the utilities. Now, KUB is appointed by the city mayor, but most of their service area includes a lot of the county residents. So
I have a complaint on KUB that I guess I need to get on Kincannon about. I'm mad at him. Anyway, not important. I'm dealing with that. And in my discovery and going through the process now that, bonus of the show is I've started contact with a number of different people. Is the issue I have with KUB is a state law requirement as a homeowner that I have to do. And I have to pay KUB for the privilege of what the state is making me do. That's the long and short of it.
Okay.
And so I kind of resent that as a person, that I am legally obligated to do something, and the person that I'm legally obligated to do it with is charging me a cover charge, for lack of a better word, to then pay to then pay for the service over time.
Right.
And so it's like I get it. There's a communal need for me to do this in a certain way. It's safer for everybody if it's a septic sewage situation. And so it's better for me to go through sewage. Okay, I get that, but I shouldn't have to pay to hook up and then pay fees over time for the service as well. That bothers me on a philosophical level.
It seems like a legitimate, frustrating point.
Yeah, and so I've been yelling at Manis and Massey about it because it's a state law that requires it. But again, that brings up the point: is I understand that that the city and/or county has people that are on the board for KUB. Is that correct?
The city,
or we have a utilities oversight board or something like that.
There is I'm trying to think of the right name for it, but there is a community. It's not an oversight board, but it is a citizen involved council that was put together recently as part of some of the reforms that KUB
and hopefully
implemented earlier this year.
Right, and hopefully Hallsdale is part of that coverage too, because my one of my businesses is up in the Powell area, and Hallsdale Utility is a whole other animal of bad. But
yeah, no, that's a different entity altogether for sure, and it has different geographic coverage and its own dynamics for sure.
Exactly. Okay, so you're my first candidate of the new cycle, I'm assuming. I don't know. Let me back that up a second. Are you going to run to hold the seat?
I am, yeah, and I announced that last week. So yeah, I'm running fast.
Gotcha. And so what you pulled petitions went available this week or going available this week from the?
No, I think they're not available until March, but I'm not waiting for those. You can submit those after you kind of announce and start campaigning.
Right. Okay. Because again, process is part of the curiosity for me, because especially with the nonpartisan part of it. And so, like, I've had Matt Shears on, I've had Randy Pace on, I've had a bunch of the different periphery politicians, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so, like, how much would you even though it's a nonpartisan race, would you say you affiliate with
I
one
did.
party over the other?
I didn't check a box. No, I don't think. I think this is in one of the things you said philosophically. You had a frustration with something. I think that's really important for. I think it's valuable to have nonpartisan. It's interesting being on city council. Some of those periphery or groups or parties want to kind of pull the city, I think, in that direction sometimes. And I actually find it 99% of the time when I'm helping people with land use issues or, being a switchboard, as Larson J mentioned, or advocating for, a tree mitigation bank or more parking or better trash pickup or too much litter. I find that a party affiliation is not required for those things to solve those problems for people, whether it's more trails or more affordable housing. That stuff falls to the wayside. And I highlight that because I think the federal and state level, parties survive because they are more macro level changes to things. But cities are and counties are where, cities particularly, more dense population. This is where the rubber meets the road of where your taxes go to literally help you and your next generation or your neighbor or somebody else. So,
for sure. Because again, that's kind of the premise. That's kind of how I got to doing what we're doing now. It started off, this show started off as mostly me arguing with my friends. And one of the arguments we've had for years has always been how important local government is and being aware of what the local is going on. And we'd always joke about it's hard to keep up with. And then it's like, well, it's because nobody keeps up with it. Okay, let's do it.
and I can appreciate you being engaged. I gravitate towards people who are highly engaged, come into the conversation with some thoughts or some threads or some opinions, but hold them a little loosely in the sense that your mind can be changed. And I find that those party affiliations don't matter when it comes to sidewalks, stormwater, and baseball.
Right. Baseball. Because I think what's become illuminating to me with what my kind of core political philosophy is and digging into the process is how much information changes the way I look at it, regardless of philosophy. I guess what I was like, the more I learn about a particular topic that's going on locally, and how things work locally and stuff like that, the more because baseball to me, my core philosophy is like, no, Mr. Boyd's got plenty of money. He can build his own thing. And that was my gut reaction to it. But as I've dug into it, the less opinionated I've come on it, I still kind of have the same opinion over the grand scheme of things. But, the more I can at least appreciate some of the reasoning behind why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so it just by being engaged, it's at least taken me from flat no on things to, okay. Yeah. And here's whys. And I think that's one of the things that misses with a lot of people's engagement with a lot of different topics is they just have this gut reaction and they stick to it and they're not willing to come off of what it is, regardless of what's in front of them.
Well, the other thing I would tell you that's around, similar to that is this. It pains me to see. I feel like social media, particularly, or the internet, is built for the ill of the otherness, where we cast assumptions onto folks that we don't know. And it's amazing how much your mind shifts when you get to know somebody that you're talking to about a real issue.
I agree. Yeah. I totally agree. And that's one of the reasons why I stick to long format and not try to have a specific topic that I stick on for the whole time, because with a 5-minute soundbite, it's really easy to encapsulate that and put that into a story that pushes one way or the other, where if it's actually, okay, here's a person, there's some reasonings behind it. They're not just a portrait of the thing. There's a whole mosaic, for lack of a better word, going on.
Yeah. And bumper stickers, there's no room for nuance, right?
Right.
And
exactly.
Most of these issues are so complex that there's loads of nuance, and they wouldn't be topics of thoughtful discussion if they weren't complex and nuanced.
Right.
So,
and it'd have to be a really big bumper sticker to include all the different things that are going on as well. Because even if we just had a bumper sticker for all the issues, that'd be an upgrade to what's available to most people. Because I think
well, maybe that's why people, some folks have like 50 bumper stickers, is because they need to put all the different pieces and nuance of their heart and mind on. And they can't fit it all on one. So
because one of the things for me, the further I've gotten into this and the more I've gotten is like the best example I have for my frustration as a citizen in this is I've been doing these shows and I've been following the some of the different situations, and this Board of Health one, which I know is a county thing. Actually, it's a state thing realistically, but that's a whole separate argument. This Board of Health and the commission thing is the entire conversation. And I now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm trying to think of the last time, other than beer board stuff and the Board of Health restriction violators on beer board stuff, that I've heard anything about what's going on in city council on the news.
All right. Well, stick with me. I'll keep you engaged. We'll clue you in.
See but that's the thing to me is that, so like the Monday of the last commission meeting, I'm watching the morning news and they keep talking about the commission meeting tonight, and all they're talking about on the commission meeting tonight was that it was the second reading of the Board of Health piece.
Yeah.
And so I pulled the agenda, and there's 50 something items on that agenda. Most of them land use, a good handful of them grant proposal things where the county has to agree on accepting funds. But, there was probably 10 issues on there that were actually had some substance to it. But the only thing anybody's talking about is Board of Health. And so that's what I'm missing.
I'll give you a rundown if you want to talk.
Yeah, hit me with something. Honestly, as we were progressing, at some point I was going to say, what are you guys working on? What's the city council doing that you don't feel has gotten any attention outside of the actual chamber?
Well, something small, but that I'm really proud of is a tree mitigation bank. So that's where we basically say we have a tree ordinance. A lot of folks don't know if you're going to redevelop an area, and it says you either have to maintain or replant the number of trees. And so tree canopy is a real thing that's vital to public health. And so when new developments happen, sometimes developers aren't able to plant as many trees as they're required to, and sometimes they ask for a variance. And so we have a tree ordinance that says now, if you can't build so many trees that you were required to, we value trees at $500 each, and you're supposed to plant 5 trees. So $2,500 goes into a tree mitigation bank, where we then plant trees nearby where we can in right of way. So we passed that ordinance about 2 months ago. I'll give you, affordable housing is a big deal in the city, more so than in the county. Permanent supportive housing for those experiencing homelessness that suffer from mental illness. Just on that note, we used to have a facility for mental illness, and now we don't. And so we've had to build permanent supportive housing in Villa Manor, Flanagan Landing. There'll be a new one on Magnolia that basically allows a shelter, roof over somebody's head for as long as they need it, particularly those that are experiencing some type of substance abuse or trauma, and they need wraparound services in order to be stable. We talk a lot about public safety. Whether it's fire, police, or the way that we allow roads to be built and maintained, or waterways. I'm really focused on litter, as well as my peer in South Knoxville, Carson Daly. We're working on recommendations to reduce the amount of litter in the city and in the county for that matter. So transportation's another thing that's really important. We have the CAT bus and that allows folks to get to work, to and from seeing friends and family, and I think we're going to invest in that more in the future. Again, a quick hit list.
One of my predictions is, or no, maybe not predictions. One of my, I'd be curious to actually see a real proposal on the table. Would be a light rail here in Knoxville. I know that's a big ticket item, so it'd be a massive undertaking. But that's one that I'm curious about long term, because again, talking to everybody I've talked to, Larson was telling me that the Planning Commission is estimating 200,000+ over the next 10 years added to our residents here in the city and county combined. And I mean, that's a lot of bodies. It's a lot of people. That's a lot of houses. That's a lot of apartments. When we already have shortages, especially in the lower income bracket of housing, or even the homelessness situation, it's like, we can build 1,000 new houses, but are they going to be new houses that people that are already here can afford, or is it going to be, I've got a good buddy of mine who just had a baby, and they've been looking for a house forever, and the housing market's out of control right now, and it's going to stay that way, is what it seems like to me. And so the long-term vision, as we were talking about earlier, the growth planning and stuff like that, that's another one. Like the light rail seems to me like a logical long-term eventuality.
Yeah, I'm on board. Pun intended. Pun intended. I think light rail is a great use of public funds. I think it's a great use of it's an equity infrastructure thing that cities can do. It allows folks to connect to one part of town and live in another. It allows for a lot of times when you build light rail, the areas around the stations become like little neighborhoods or
See, I had a thought on that.
Yeah.
As a cost reduction method, you use the already commercial areas. So like take Westtown Mall, go to the Simon guys, be like, hey, you guys build the station in your basement, and we'll have a stop for you. Because I bet you either them or Turkey Creek or somebody like that would be willing to put that money up, because like you said, it's too late for Easttown. We've already gotten rid of that's already shut down and getting repurposed. But to take those shopping areas that already exist and let them foot some of that bill, because it's going to grow them as a shopping area. Because if I'm Simon Malls, I could charge more for rent now, because you're going to have more traffic.
The problem with light rail is that it is, I mean, the same with anything, but it is extremely expensive. I mean, it's more than $30 million a mile. And now there are federal programs that subsidize some of that, and you can build in some of the, there's some economic incentives where capture mechanisms where areas around stations can be taxed in a way that kind of feeds money back into the to the light rail itself.
Similar to the baseball kind of deal where they have the special tax
very
district.
similar. Yeah, except this would be more voluntary, where somebody says a certain area around the station, everybody around there, not everybody, but most of the people around there have to agree to that kind of unique tax capture mechanism. But there's not many private funded rail lines, and so Brightline in Florida is probably the only private rail line to be built in the past 30, 40 years in the U.S. And it's seemingly successful. They're extending it throughout Florida. It runs, I can't remember if it goes from Tampa to Orlando or which two city it goes between now, but they're extending it to a third major MSA. But yeah, light rail has a whole bunch. Plus, also you can, there's federal funds for attaching affordable housing to the station area to where you can lock in certain housing rental rates because it's associated with transportation. So yeah, I agree with you, because you can't build another lane out of congestion, because by the time you build another lane on each side, you'll be. Yeah, I just saw 2 or 3 reports this week. You may have seen U-Haul puts out a report that shows one-way destinations. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I haven't seen it specifically, but I've heard the story. Yeah.
So there was 2 or 3 others I saw, and I'm on the Chamber's Economic Development Committee, and one of the things we talk about in there is just not population growth, but also, virtual workers, and that they're flocking to work here because of our quality of life and green spaces and urban wilderness and blue spaces and our blue ways, I should say. Those are the people. Knoxville will grow. The question is, what infrastructure do we have to put in place from a housing and transportation standpoint? Usually with growth comes pretty good jobs. The problem is, if you look at Knoxville over the past, 3 or 4 years, even last year, new job counts and new company counts are still going up. Construction costs are still going up. Yeah. So there's still growth. We don't have this long form is not enough time to talk about the inequities between terms of income, federally or statewide, but even locally, wage growth is not growing necessarily. So you've got not just nationally, but here locally, lots of people moving in, lots of cool entrepreneurs starting stuff up. But
and the question being, with all this growth in population, is going to grow cost of living as a result. Is the newer demand for whatever is here, it's already clear as day in the housing market, but it just in normal day-to-day stuff, is it going to start running grocery bills a little higher, little gas bills a little higher, all the other stuff, are they going to increase as well? And then that wage rate staying the same really comes out as a minus over time.
You got it. And who, yeah, is everybody benefiting? And it's clear nationally that's not the case. Statewide is not the case, and here locally we have the same challenge. So, I would stack up Knoxville's quality of life, including cost of living and the ability to stretch a dollar, and just the natural resources and cool, fun art and just access to things that produce joy. I would stack it up against any city I've ever been to. And so, to your point, with more folks moving in, we got to maintain that, because I think it's that thing that's deep within us that we all kind of appreciate and kind of take for granted a little bit. But if prices of all those things you rattled off start to skyrocket, then we start to look at ourselves a little differently.
Right. And on that same kind of train of thought, that's the one thing that keeps me back on this baseball thing that I wanted. I don't care about baseball. I want a good outdoor venue in town. We stopped doing it. We could, that part of my argument could go to bed if we started doing stuff on World's Fair again. I don't know why we stopped doing stuff on World's Fair Park.
Yeah, I saw a lot of good shows on that lawn a long time ago.
Yeah, and so I think a good large outdoor venue and a not university affiliated indoor venue is on my list of things among all the other things that are expensive that I like. I think the Civic is terrible. Everybody knows it. It's just it was probably great in its heyday, but anymore it's not a functional building for most of the things. The only thing that really functions in there are Ice Bears games, and there's not that many hockey fans in Knoxville. So I've seen a few concerts there, and they're hard. They're just hard concerts to be. And it's not a promoter's idea. It's a weird building. And so for me, I'd rather have that money spent on a new Civic than a baseball stadium. But
okay.
I just think, because again, it's if I don't care about the core thing that's going on there, but the periphery that comes with it, I like, especially the idea of, go see a nice concert, and then right into the old city. It's like, traffic's going to suck. So wait, hang out for a little while, chill, let the traffic clear out. Or it would be really cool is, hobble down the street a little bit, get on a train, and then get all the way back out into your neighborhood before you even have to think about driving.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because I would agree. That's the thing on the light rail to me too, is as much as it's for, it's an economic way to move around on a day-to-day basis, but event-wise too, it takes out, it's the worst argument you can have, but I think it's a real argument, is that if I want to go downtown and party, we as a community are better off if I'm only driving drunk from the train station to my house instead of driving all the way from downtown to my house. Not that I'm advocating to drive drunk that far either. I'm just saying that the reality is that people do it, and it's not okay that people do it. It's just, it happens. And so to minimize the amount of time drunk drivers are on the road through a transit system makes sense as a sales pitch to me. Maybe not the best one if you're because you have to be the politician about it. I don't.
Well, I think also the thing, I rode a light rail for 2 years in a different city and to and from work. And honestly, no matter how hard the day was, it was a good way to start and finish the day. Just either reading something or catching up on something or calling, a cell phone company and waiting on hold. Like, it was a good kind of passive way to start and finish the day.
Right. Yeah, well, for sure. That makes sense. Getting some periphery stuff done in just a general downtime, because you can't do that while you're driving because you're driving.
That's right. That's right.
So the other big thing that's going on right now this weekend especially, this little spike in murders we've had over the last 14 months now is starting to freak me out. We are significantly up over the last, 2020 was almost double of 2019. And I don't know the exact stat for this year so far, but we're 6 weeks in and we're pretty close to, if not already in double digits this year. Mm-hmm. It's kind of scaring the crap out of me.
Yeah. It concerns me deeply. There was a shooting last night in the 1st district. And so, crime is high. And so at this year, and I think, I would be, it would be foolish for me to guess as to the single specific issue, but I do think typically when the economy's down for an elongated period, you start to see crime go up. Um, but that doesn't mean we can't fight it back the best we can.
Right.
You know, crime and homelessness both are hugely complex issues. They don't have a single lever that causes them to increase or decrease typically, and so everything that we can do from an intervention standpoint. I mean, a lot of this stems from poverty, and so that's a real issue across the country, but also in parts of our city. And so, to the extent we can, back to I mean, some of these violence and things like this are tied to the economic things we talked about a few minutes ago.
For sure.
When you allow people live on a razor thin edge of despair, you're gonna have a lot of folks trip into despair because of trauma or things that they didn't.
Right.
It,
One thing that's out of their control takes barely getting by to no chance.
totally.
And
And once you go into no chance land and spend some time there, you
right.
start to do some permanent destruction to where it's
Right.
almost impossible to come up out of it.
Yeah, somehow nothing's off the table anymore. And I talked to Amelia about it too, and it's become an issue that I guess I'm becoming an advocate for instead of just a passive. I think I again, not being able to pinpoint all of the causes involved here, but I mean, black market illicit drug trade is definitely part of the game. And I think, at least for starters, I think we need to go full recreational in the state. Again, I know it's above the city level, but I think it's one of those, regardless of the
For everything or specific substances.
Well, I operate as a libertarian, so I would say everything in general, but we'll start with pot and work our way from there. I mean, I think it's Portugal. If you haven't looked it up, there's a Portugal went full legal on everything.
Recently,
yeah, it's a couple of years ago, and there's been some studies on it. They're pretty interesting. I'd have to look it up to get the exact numbers, but their heroin overdose rate dropped like 80-something%. And of the handful that still happened, they were all through black market usage, even though there was a legal market. So people buying it off the street instead of buying it from legal vendors, and getting bad product kind of situation. And so, I'm not a stoner. I don't care. I don't smoke pot. It doesn't do it for me. It's never been a joy of mine. I've got some Jim Beam over here. That's my buddy. And if I can do that, and somebody else prefers a different substance to relax with, who am I to tell them otherwise? That's the libertarian part of it. But just really, if you take the drug use kind of label off of it and take the economics of the conversation, I think it could very easily be structured in a way inside the state where we are a state that would produce it well. So production, distribution, and retail inside the state, that's a ton of tax revenue.
Yeah, there was a spike in, I've lost the words. What's this? Hemp. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that industry had a little tailwind behind it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and it fell out a little bit, but that was a good. I guess I was watching that particularly to think, all right, this is our kind of toe in the water in that direction.
I mean, that is part of my business. I am in the CBD business as an aside. And it's one of those that, economically speaking, the spike that you mentioned was there, but I think the spike exceeded demand, and so now it's starting to trickle down to a natural state. Because I can't count how many we were already doing it, but how many new CBD specific stores came on the market in 2018, 2019, and then how many are starting to fall off. It was the same thing. Our core business is we're a vape store. It was the same thing there. We were number 8 in town when we opened our first store, and then as of like 2018, we were up to like 60 some in county, and it's kind of dropped down to like mid 30s now. And a new one will pop up, but as a new one pops up, it's kind of, Knox County can handle about 30 is what it seems like. And so I think that's what happened in the CBD game. But so the economic impact of the industry, I think, would be huge for tax revenues and for employments. And then I think you also have the taking out, You take out the need for the black market, which takes out the other criminal activity that goes around with it. I don't know. I don't know the stats. I don't know the details of all the different murders, but it's hard for me to not believe that at least a significant percentage of them are involved with some illicit substance trade.
Yeah, it is. It's organized, and there's been a spike in domestic matters too. So, again, typically, if you look back over depressed economic conditions that are over a certain amount of time,
Right.
that aren't just quick, we've kind of been straining through this COVID thing for a full year, and I feel like everybody's wearing thin. We have to do things that keep us safe, but it doesn't. The human toll is real nonetheless.
Right. I agree. I agree with that for sure. I didn't mean to go on my full legalized pot pitch, but I think it's
it's okay.
I think it's to me.
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other at this point. So
I mean, to me, it just there are again, take out the what it is part of it. It's not that damaging, but that doesn't even need to be the part of the argument to me. I think in and of itself, just the economics and the criminality that surrounds the black market version of that industry, removing both of those goes a long way with a number of different things. So anyway, that's my stance on that one.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. So baseball is the big one currently going on. Like I said, I keep going back and forth on where I sit on it. To me, my concern is that I feel like it feels to me like it's a given, and it's really just a nitpick of how exactly we're going to do it.
I don't know. I wouldn't go.
Right, but this is my perception from what I've seen so far.
Fair enough.
I don't know that for a fact. Amelia tends to be like, no, I think it's. I think the fact that we're having real conversation, that there's some people that are willing to be like, hold on a second, gives us room for argument. But I don't know. I guess Eric Wader, I've had him on, and he was talking about it, and it's like, it feels like there was the question of, do we want to pay for a baseball stadium or not, has never been officially asked. But I think part of that is because we haven't seen officially what we're paying for it, and that may be where the confusion.
Well, this is the hard part about this particularly, and a lot of things like this, where it's hard to, even you said so yourself, as little you're kind of shaping the more you find out. I think we're all most of our brains are likely to reshape in some way once we find out new information. So it's this, hey, there's this intent, there's a real conceptual thing. What are the mechanics and the details of it? You kind of hold off your decision making a little bit until you learn more. So it's this hard. I don't have like a specific proposal to say yay or nay to, or to even weigh in on. At the same time, you got to get some more meat on the bone to even make a decision. So it's a tricky thing. It probably does feel like there's momentum in it, because you have to take it to a certain place just to even consider the merits.
Right.
And otherwise, you just spend all your time on the back of a napkin and
right, for sure. Right, because like we've got like Lafferty's got it. It's going to the state for the special tax part of it already. But I guess that, again, it's a perception thing. It's like, there are parts moving to the end. I mean, we created the sports authority. The state is voting on whether or not we can have the special tax district. So there's parts moving towards the end, but it doesn't actually mean we're going to that end yet. But again, like that perception, like
I totally get how it feels that way. I totally get it. I think Mayor Kincannon, for that matter, and just last month, I know Mayor Jacobs both said that they support the concept and trying to make it work. So if you just take those two folks alone, and they're saying, yeah, let's give this its full consideration and see if we can do it. It would feel like this thing's headed in that direction, because it is, whether it's to get it to do it, or to even get all the fine-tuned details down so that we can say yes or no. I think that's where we are. Yeah.
And again, for my sake of it, not that it's important, but I think one of the questions that I came up with, the more I look at it, it's like, do we really still think it's $65 million? Because when did they write that proposal of the cost of the building of construction compared to what the cost of construction is now? given
Yeah.
the demand.
Well, and there are different ways to go about it. I don't know how Nashville did it, but I know some cities. Uh, I'm going to get all the legal words wrong, so bear with me. But essentially, there's one group, either whether it's a city or a private developer, et cetera, who I think most of the time gets shouldered with the responsibility for paying for whatever overages happen. So one party will get, is responsible for consuming all of the overages that would happen. So to your point, if we think it's 65 and it comes out to be 85 because of construction, well, I think there's a way that you can put that into an agreement that says, here's where we are. It costs more than that.
It's on you. Yeah. I could get down with that as a provision inside it. I mean, I think, one of the big ones to me is what they decide reasonable rent is. I just kept hearing that phrase in the meeting, reasonable rent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, for the cost for the cost of the building that you're talking about, and what a normal person would pay on a mortgage of a house of said value, it's like $3 million a year. If $3 million a year is the reasonable rent, I'm in. But I don't think that's what rent's going to come out to.
Tell me how you got that $3 million a year.
It's 240 a 0 interest mortgage payment on that long, or on 65 million. Yeah, 0 interest mortgage payment is like right at 240,000 a month. So
Okay.
So times
All right.
12, it's like
Yeah.
I think that's the right math. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. No, I didn't mean to hit you with this. Show me the spreadsheet. I was just curious what you were thinking. Okay.
It might not have been a 0% loan, but it was I just put it
Well,
into a loan calculator.
I think that's probably that's probably a number that you have to find money for. So whether it's all in rent or whether it's in some of these unique legislative actions that would have to happen at the state level, or those dollars have to be found some way. So
Right.
Some of it might be rent. It may be later on with special tax, some whatever.
Well, because here's, I guess, the main issue with to me. The main issue with to me is the argument for is this is unused, unproductive land downtown. That's the argument for doing it. It's going to put a thing there, and Boyd is going to build those stuff around it, and it's going to be a $200 million complex basically that's built down there. But it's all going to be in this special tax district. Well, if it's unused and it's not producing tax revenue, and then if it's built and producing tax revenue, but all the tax revenue is going off to pay the bills, then it's still a net zero for the county and city coffers. Like, our money doesn't change.
For a certain time period, right? And then it's like you invest in a business and you get your equity back, and now it's money in the coffer every year.
Right, but then that goes along with assuming that the Smokies don't do the same game and move back to Sevierville or something else in the process. But
yes, terms and lengths of agreement; those are really important.
Right, and I think
those are really important. Yeah,
and I think it was you in the meeting who was asking that the terms of the contract between the Smokies and Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Versus what we're thinking, it'll be a 30-year term with us as the county and city, but it's a 10-year term in baseball. And if baseball decides to not continue that 10 years in, we got 20 years left of a loan that we don't know what to do with.
Regardless, if it happens, and I don't want to feed into the momentum that you were saying that it doesn't feel good, but if it does, we need to know, every year what happens if we part ways. So at year 2, at year 11, at year 15, at year 43, what's the financial arrangement for those different terms? Right,
makes sense. All right, so you're south side of the river, and that's been a city project I haven't been super excited about. I think it looks nice, but I think it's weird, and I don't know if this was intentional on the city's part.
Oh, Seth, come on over, buddy. Come on over. This won't be weird.
I'm excited about that the Kearns Bakery thing. That looks really cool.
All right. Where do you live? You'll have to give me the address.
I live out in Rocky Hill, West Knoxville, but for a number of years I lived over there off of Taliwa.
Okay.
So it's nicer now than it was back when I lived there. I'll give you that.
Okay.
But I don't know. It seems I don't know. I have a strained relationship with the university and its relationship with the city county. I don't like that those. Again, I don't know if this was a decision on the city's part or if it was the developer that all those apartments and stuff are specifically built for college students, and it's like I don't know. That bums me out. I would like that to be a young professionals housing. I don't know how well you can target that in legislation, but yeah.
Which one are you thinking? You think about the one right there on the river beside Regal, or the new ones behind Kearns?
It's the two that are right on the river there. The one on either side of Henley Street.
Right.
As far as I
Yeah,
understand,
I would say one of them is college oriented. The other is working professional
is it
oriented.
okay?
Yeah, the one Riverwalk I think is working professional focused.
I mean, the Regal thing's kind of backfired on us, but we couldn't control that.
Yeah.
They got bought, and that those things happen. So I got a personal one for you, and I don't know if this works.
Okay.
I had I think the closest one is in Chattanooga. They have pedal pubs. Have you seen these things?
Yeah, and where you ride around.
Right, it's like this weird bike thing that seats 10 people, and it's got a bar in it. I was thinking about doing a boat version down there on the waterways. Who do you think? Where do I start on the legalities of that?
Well, we just saw. I don't know if you saw. There's a company out of Buffalo that has an autonomous ferry that they piloted, I guess, a month ago.
I did see the little video of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not alone. I mean, they didn't have kegs hanging off the back, but they. I think.
I'm just saying. Go. What's Sevier Avenue over there, where the high wire pub that got,
yeah,
and
that would probably be a new beer ordinance that we would have to consider.
That wonderful new park down there. You go park at the park. You hop on my barge. We'll pedal across the river, drop you down there at the stadium, go to the football game, go downtown, and you can pregame on your way too.
You picked a hilly city to I don't know who's peddling, but it's going to be a tough.
For my part, we're on the water. It's as flat can be.
All right. Oh, from the water. Okay, very good. Yeah.
But
yeah, I'll have to look into that. If you really want me to, I will dig into it.
I don't know. Like I'm trying to. I've seen a couple different versions of them out there that exist. I'm trying to figure out how much it would cost to build. Yeah. To build a machine.
I don't even know if a water taxi is allowed at the moment, but
because that to me is I think that's one of the issues to me, at least maybe in hindsight, maybe not as much presently as it used to be, is that South Knoxville seems like it seems like it seems fairly well separated. It's not super easy to access. It's either Henley Street or James White Parkway to me. Gay Street Bridge doesn't do a lot, really. I don't know how much traffic it gets, but it just runs into, maybe now with that apartment complex and stuff going up, it might be a little bit more useful. But it always seemed to me to be very separated from Knoxville proper, both physically and even kind of culturally to some level.
I would say both of those converge into what's become its greatest strength. When you think of the urban wilderness, and the amount of tree canopy in South Knoxville is larger than any other part of the city. And so that's an asset. And so the city has utilized that asset to create a place for hundreds of trails of hiking and biking, and which I think will become, looking back 20, 30 years from now, maybe one of Knoxville's most distinct features is the amount of woodland and green play space that we have. So South Knoxville, I think, has been lucky in the sense that maybe it wasn't attended to for very, very much for so long that they used that as a strength. And so I think it's time to use the Tennessee River as one of those assets that I feel like we fully underutilize. So whether it's a booze taxi across the river, or whether we became a Tennessee River town, which is a program for cities where the Tennessee River runs through it. And so there's 15 towns, and we just joined a coalition of 15 cities that with the goal of providing more access points to the water along it. And so not only is that for like play and recreation, but the more you use things, typically the more you want to invest in keeping them clean.
Right.
And so I think more play in the water or access to the water will lead to a cleaner Tennessee River, which I think we can all say yes to that.
Yeah. Well, one of my bucket list things is I want to go. I want to go down. I guess I want to launch somewhere downtown, maybe Imes area or something like that, and I want to go to New Orleans.
I love that.
It'll take a little. It'll take a little while.
You should make a little documentary about it.
I could probably do the podcast from it and everything. I'd have to get a better.
You probably could.
I'd have to get better cell service for sure. But
yeah.
it's just again, I think there's I'm excited. I've been excited about the further I get into this, the more excited I get. Sometimes the more frustrated I get, but the more excited I get about the potential and the things that are going on here. I think I love Knoxville. I'm not going anywhere. The only thing Knoxville doesn't get is big concerts. But the bonus of that is I don't have to deal with a big concert that I don't care about, except for Garth Brooks 6 nights in a row or whatever in Thompson. But if there is a big concert that is touring in the States, Nashville or Atlanta is going to have them. So I can do a weekend trip. But
I guess it depends on how you think about big. I would be remiss if I didn't mention big ears and the uniqueness of that in this town. That it could be anywhere in the country and attract sold out tickets. I mean, I think they sold out in
now Big Ears. If I've
hours last time.
Big Ears is a multi-venue festival. Like it uses a handful of different venues, and it's kind of going.
Yeah, and it's got every flavor of music and performance you can imagine, and it's all over the city. It's got some little concerts in places that don't typically have them, and they also leverage things like the Mill and Mine and places like that. But that's something we have that's really special. But we don't. I guess Garth Brooks came through. It's
right.
Pretty good size.
And now that there's booze available in on campus, I've heard that pre-pandemic they had a bunch of plans for some Thompson events, or not Thompson, but Neyland Stadium events were in the works and kind of fell off. And so maybe once those get into place and I get to go see something that I want to see there, I'll be a little bit more excited about it. But so far, it's been just, I don't know, Kenny Chesney. I think that was the last one there. It's like,
what would it take? The Foo Fighters? I'm taking a clue from your shirt.
That would help. Yeah, I had tickets to see him at Thompson and back in April.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that got postponed to November and then got canceled. So it was a bummer. It was the worst gift I've ever given my wife. Here's some paper we get to throw away in a couple months.
Well, maybe this fall is possible.
Hopefully things can get back on their feet in that aspect. So I don't know. That was good. Is there anything else specifically you want to get out that I missed or that you want to?
No, I mean, no. We covered a whole range of stuff. We could go on for 6 hours on this, but I appreciate your time. I'm happy to talk about Knoxville anytime because it's a city that I care about. I'm not going anywhere either. I was born and raised here, and
I mean, I'm an import. No, the other one over this side.
Oh, okay, very good. That's all right. Well, you don't have to be born here to be a Knoxvillian. So,
well, in fairness, above that is my.
Okay, fair enough.
My more local version of it, but
there you go. Very good.
That's a fun little story. I worked at the O'Charlie's down there on the Strip when it was still there, and I worked up until close. And for those of us that wanted to, that were working there, help clean it out and stuff like that. I think I paid $25 for those two things from.
Oh my gosh!
So it's the National Championship panoramic and that street sign or whatever that I got out of there. So it was fun. But
them were the years.
Yeah, back when we won football games and stuff. Anyway,
too soon. Still.
it's gonna be. Anyway, not going down the football.
Well, we're on a new coach and new AD high, so let's ride it.
Right. I'm trying to think of how many times that high has burnt me. How many hangovers off that high have I gotten, and whether I'm willing to get there again.
A muted life, Seth. You got to let your heart go there.
All right. So, do you want to plug anything as far as any contact information that anybody wants to get a hold of you about or anything like that?
Well, I'm running for elections. So I'd hate to pass up on that. You can go to my website, tommyforknoxville.com. I care a lot about this city. I think we can invest in it in ways that make this place special for the people who live here, and that way, folks that visit and want to move here will get to enjoy the same thing. But we got to invest in the people that are here, small businesses, and quality of life. So that's my pitch. And
so quick, just for clarification's sake, to make sure, is it it's FOR4, not the number 4?
Yes, TommyForKnoxville.com. FOR.
FOR. Okay, because that's one of those. It's anyway. English is stupid sometimes. We got to deal with it. All right. Well, I got an outro to do, and we'll call it a show. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you, Tommy. That was a good show. That was fun. TommyForKnoxville.com. We're going to keep doing these shows. Tommy's my first official candidate of the cycle, so we'll get more candidates. We'll find out who's going to try to steal his job, and see if we can get a chance to talk to them as well. We are almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Shoot us an email or a message or something like that. Something that maybe any of us miss in conversation that you think is important, that is not getting talked about, is not getting any coverage here in the county or the city. I've got I got a bunch more stuff lined up. I'm still trying to hammer down Mamontov in the pro baseball stadium conversation. I've got Massey Manis coming up. I've got Dasha Lundy. I've got SEMA from City Council tomorrow. I don't know. They're going to keep coming, so stay tuned. We'll keep the information rolling. Thanks for listening, everybody, and have a good night.